Group Captain Vinod, I want to understand from you. If 100 plus fighter jets flew in 3 waves, bombed Iran and returned, though of course there's very little information, at least in public domain, on the impact on ground, does the fact that they were able to fly, bomb and return unharmed indicate total air dominance that Israel has? And does it also indicate how vulnerable Iran may actually be?
Wonderful question, Gaurav. And as usual, you got the nail on the head, because the first operation in any air operation is, air defense. I mean, you counter-air operations in which you take out the air defense weapons. In this case, it's in the modern times, except probably when, US ran over Iraq, in the modern times, Gaurav, we have not seen an air operation against a country in which, such magnitude of aeroplanes entered and didn't get hit and come back. It's very, very rare to see, which rightly put by you. They've conducted some kind of SEAD, DEAD operations in the prelude of these 100 aircraft strike. So the front portion of this 100 aircraft strike has been, the jammers, electronic warfare jammers, carrying out SEAD operations. Then you had other aircraft carrying out the DEAD operations, destruction of enemy air defense operations, which includes the front-tier missiles and the radars. So they first, jammed them with electronic energy. Then they blinded them with taking out all these important elements of air defense, including the air defense communication network. And the rest of the 70, 80 aircraft had kind of a field day, Turkish shoot over Iraq, which is a classical, extremely well executed air operation. Now, will they be able to build on top of this? That's a question that remains to be answered, Gaurav.
And for the benefit of viewers, I know in India First, most of our viewers know what SEAD and DEAD means. SEAD is suppression of enemy air defenses, and DEAD, as Group Captain Augustine Vinod very rightly pointed out, is destruction of enemy air defenses. Enemy in this case for Israel being Iran. Dr. Vaheel Awad, what should one make of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Commander Hussein Salami warning Israel of bitter consequences? Sir, does this indicate that there will be escalation if Iran fired around 300 drones and missiles in April and 181 on the 1st of October? This time, as Iran has warned that they have 1,000 ballistic missiles ready to bomb Israel, is that on the cards, sir?
Absolutely on the cards, Saurabh. I think if we look at the chronology of the event taking place, ever since Israel started sabotaging with the CIA against Iran, ever since the Iranian Revolution has come, in fact, 1979. So we know that the covert operation has been carried out for long years. But having said that, I would say for the last year or so, we have seen lots of loss of the scientists. We have seen lots of attacking of installation in Iran, jamming of by cyber attacking also their nuclear site. All these have been taking place, provocative measure, till the killing of Ismail Haniyeh done in his site in Tehran. And that was a natural, or it is a normal retaliation of the attack of a sovereign nation. That's what the Article 4 of the United Nations Charter says, that if you are subjected to any kind of an attack, you have the right to respond. So when Iran responded to the killing of their official in the consulate in Damascus, they on April, then second attack was after July with the 2 killing of Hamas and Ismail Haniyeh inside Tehran, and also the killing of Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut. That was made the Iranian retaliate. Now Israel, according to US and the West, have the right to retaliate. But on what basis? That's how they read the UN Charter, and this is the hypocrisy. Now, if Iran retaliate, it's a full right to do so. So I think the Iranians are measuring and taking a well-calculated messages this time, because last time they were already taken for a ride when the United States sent some of the official insight that we are not going to, don't retaliate, we are trying to reach negotiate a ceasefire in Gaza Strip. And I think that assurance is given. Then we saw the loss of Hassan Nasrallah and the attack on Lebanon. Now I think it may be an escalation, and don't take the Israeli lightly, the attack on it. And I think they are already preparing, because we know that US, Germany, France, and UK already on the ground.
That's very interesting. You should say that. Absolutely. Whether you talk about Mediterranean Sea and a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier strike group or other navies that are joining in, or the third air defense missile shield, terminal high altitude air defense missile shield with 100 U.S. Personnel already in Israel. But Group Captain Vinod, you, apart from public information that's there in public domain, you've been talking to a lot of open source intelligence people and also other networks. Any details of bomb damage assessment on ground? Reports from Israel seem to indicate that Iran's entire S-300 missile defense shield, and S-300 is, as you know better, extremely potent. They've been destroyed, all of them that were around not just Tehran, but in the western part of the country.
Absolutely. In fact, that really shocked me a little, Gaurav, because the S-300 procurement, it moved from my table when I was still in uniform. And I know for a fact that it is an extremely potent weapon. But let me also give you a small example. I mean, I take a leaf from Dr. Vaheel Awad's, talk about the other members of the NATO, as well as, people who are in support with Israel being involved in this entire gamut of how this attack has happened. So when they are involved, and also some inimical and well-entrenched forces involved inside Iran, Iran's ploy of no information to come out hasn't worked well. The BDA, the social media BDA, let me put it that way, has been much more effective than the BDA probably conducted by even Israelis, because when they bombed, I was very close to that place, right close to Basra when this bombing was happening. It was cloudy, it was raining, in fact. In fact, the entire that region rained. Meena Watcher, Dr. Awad will bear me out on this. And that is when I left that place. So being on the ground, I'm telling you this. Their BDA, that is Israeli BDA, may not have been effective as much as the social media BDA, which we are seeing, some of it we are seeing on the screen. You're right, S-300 has been taken out. I feel the deployment of S-300 itself is an art, because S-300 is a distributed system. You can have the radar elsewhere, the missile elsewhere, and the command and control system elsewhere. You can connect it with data link, OFC. So taking out an S-300 system, if you deploy it well and if you used your brain, it is, Gaurav, is next to impossible. If Israelis have done it, that means there has been a glaring tactical or an operational error in deployment of this S-300. That is the long and short of what I can, say what happened. Now, that led to another, and that is what we are seeing on the screen, and see the amount of damage that has happened. And they have to pay for it in times to come. Over to you, Gaurav.
That's a big point. They may have to pay for it in times to come, because next time if there's an attack, how vulnerable will Iran be with its eyes gone and with its counter-strike capability diminished? Dr. Awad, Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas and Hezbollah are both no longer effective proxies for Iran. Now, is that an indication if for the past 1 year, Hamas has been targeted, the entire command and control system of Hezbollah have been targeted, and now Iran has directly been targeted? Does that make Iran vulnerable, sir?
Absolutely not. I don't think, let us come out from the notions of the Iranian that we call Hamas and Hezbollah are the proxies of Iran. In fact, we call also Israel is the proxy of US, if that is the way we should see it. I think they are allies. Until now, Hamas and Hezbollah are fighting their own war. They have not taken the leaves of the Iranian attack. And I think there are still secretive missiles will be used in the future if Iran has been attacked by the NATO member. So I don't see, at the moment, we just call them an ally, because the fight, Gaurav, as you know, it's not on the issues of Hamas, because Hamas is not the problem. It's the 2.5 million Palestinians who are suffering in Gaza Strip, who have been slaughtered, who has been killed in front of the eyes. I mean, even the International Court of Justice have said that this is a criminal act. This is a genocide. So how long it can go on? That is what the objective of the Israeli government, which is not declared. And similarly, in Hezbollah and in Lebanon, most of the Shia villages are in the south of Lebanon. And that is where the Hezbollah has been involved ever since its creation after Israel invaded Lebanon and occupied 1982 Beirut. So I think what we should see here is that there is an ambition of a prime minister of Israel called Benjamin Netanyahu, who was originally from Poland, wanted to expand this war so he avoid being taken on a trial next December, and also avoid, because he's gaining popularity. The more he go into the war and attack
Sir,
leaders.
all of this started, sir, I may take your point, but all of it started after the October 7 Hamas terror attack on Israel that killed 1,200 people. Before that, this hadn't started. That's my limited point to the points you're raising. Then again, the Hezbollah strike on Israel started on the 8th of October, which is what led to a strike back. That's my limited point on the point that you're making about Benjamin Netanyahu wanting to expand this war. But Group Captain Vinod, if air defense, if Iran's majority of its air defenses, and I will not say all, even though there were 3 waves of airstrikes and SIAD and DIAD happened, I want to understand, does that mean if Iran responds, and Iran will now have to think, if it responds, if it escalates, which means Israel will escalate once again, and Iran will then be more vulnerable than it was in the first attack, and next time, it's not just its military targets, the oil infrastructure and the nuclear targets could be next.
Absolutely, and both this news is not good for India because we are friends with both. One for energy security, another for the technology and other things that we have friendship with. And we are a neutral observer, and with that as the background, I am completely with Dr. Awad on this because, see, Hammurabi said, an eye for an eye. With that yardstick, Gaurav, for 1,400 people, it should have stopped at 1,400 people and not 40,000. So to that limited extent, I am absolutely in agreement with what Dr. Awad said. And so the point that you're making, Gaurav, has much larger operational and strategic implication for 2 reasons. A, the advisors of Khamenei should not advise him grandeur plans because they have to see what they have lost on the ground. Secondly, they have to, we in the Forge, we call it, net assessment. They have to net assess if this happens, what is the future outcome going to be? And if this happens, so you'll have to have certain happening, benchmarks at which you will measure what your future, your country's future is going to be. And that has to be done dispassionately. We do it in Forge very, very dispassionately, in Indian Forge, very dispassionately. We do it. They have to do it dispassionately. And with that as the background,
they need to cut their losses if that is what needs to be done on either side. And Dr. Vaheel Awad, the last 30 seconds I have on this part of the show, Israel struck not just Iran, but air defenses in Syria and Iraq and flew over multiple countries in the region. Sir, that's the question I want to come to. While Iran may blame an air corridor, but does that indicate there are countries in the region, irrespective of religion, they are not with Iran?
Absolutely not. These are occupied by the Americans. In fact, they're occupying north and eastern of Syria. They're stealing the oil and they're protecting IS there. And Daesh, in fact, we have more than 55,000 terrorists are still under the American umbrella. So I think they already have control over the sky of Iraq. And that's why Iraq submitted a complaint to the United Nations because of violating their airspace by Israel and even by the United States. I think the most important point here, Gaurav, I must mention here is that we only remember the 7th of October after the Israeli being killed. But if we look at 75 years of killing of the Palestinians, I think we'll be justifying what's going on is a genocide. And we're looking for justice. Everybody in the Arab world, all the stakeholders asking for 2-state solution. Even they told the American and the West, and they told Iran and Israel, we do not want it to have a war. Look at the region who has only wanted the war. And I think that is the message. The international community has to step in to stop this genocide, to stop this war, and let us have a peaceful discussion. Because in the absence of a comprehensive political framework to a solution, the war cannot be the only solution.
That's very interesting. You should point that. And that brings us to the point that will there be compromise now? Are either side or both sides now willing to talk, negotiate, and find a peaceful road ahead? Group Captain Vinod and Dr. Vaheel Awad for joining me here on India Today. As always, many thanks. We'll be tracking the story very closely.